evening, everyone. We are going to call tonight's meeting to order. We're going to start with an approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? Was there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Councillor Stevens?
Wasn't prepared, sorry. Yes, I do have one, but I don't even know the number because, like, as I said, I didn't fill the form out yet.
13.1.3.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And if you can just submit the paperwork with the clerk's department, please. And we do have, was there any other disclosures? We're good. We do have a recommendation that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to section 239 subsection 2 of the Municipal Act for the purposes of considering the following subject matters: the closed council minutes from November 4th and a confidential verbal report from CAO Smith regarding his work plan and performance update, which falls under section labor relations or employee negotiations. Can I have a motion to go into closed, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We are now in closed session. Okay, good evening, everyone. We are going to resume to the open portion of our meeting, and we will begin, as we always do, with the singing of our national anthem, and I'd ask that you rise if you're able, please.
Canada, a home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Ahead of tonight's open meeting, we did have a closed session, and the recommendation in our Rise and Report is that the minutes of the November 4th, 2024 closed council meeting be approved, and that the confidential verbal report from David Smith, CAO, regarding the CAO work plan and performance update regarding labor relations or employee negotiations be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion, Council, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens. Any opposed? Seeing none, we will move into the adoption of the minutes of the previous council meeting. The recommendation is that the minutes of the following meetings be approved: the October 28th council public meeting and the November 4th council minutes. Can I have a motion to approve those, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We'll now move into question period. If there's any members of the public connecting via telephone, they're reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute, and that there's a maximum of 3 minutes to ask their question. Was there anybody online with a question, Ravneet? Nope, seeing none. Was there anybody in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Come on up. You can just turn on the mic, have a seat, and state your name and address for the record, please. Oh, the mic is actually already on for you.
James Jackson, 50 Carlton Drive, Orangeville, Ontario, NW2X9. Mine's actually, it's not so much a question. I guess it's more of a statement. It's actually in regards to 1317, which is our fire department for the new expansion or the development that how we've gone from a $8 million estimate to now over $30 million. So it's gone about 4 times as much. I'm, as a concerned citizen and taxpayer, I'm just more or less thinking that maybe we should put that on hold instead of building the Taj Mahal for our fire department, because the taxes in this town, it's going to keep going up and up and up. And somebody who's on a fixed income, I can't afford for more. Like, it's nice. I'm not knocking any support towards our fire department at all. I support them at all costs, but or not all costs, but at fully stand behind them as opposed to in front of them. So, but anyways, I just wanted to say my 2 cents about that. It's getting too costly, personally myself. And since the CVC has lifted the the floodplain issue for where the fire department is now, maybe we should look at expanding that facility. Just my thought.
Ms. Savage, did you want to speak to a bit about the recommendations in the report and what the report is talking to?
Sure.
ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. So thank you, James. We feel the same. We recognize that the increased budget we did not anticipate at this point is a bit high, and we are revisiting 4 options in order to decrease the cost. The report outlines those 4 options. One of them is descoping the entire project. The other one is to build just the suppression side, so operational side, and the training side, because we do have grant funding, leave administration where they are. The third option would be to put the project on hold until we can develop a funding strategy. And the fourth option, or unless that was 4,
Was to expand the current site. Yeah.
was to stay at the current site and renovate the site. Yeah. You mentioned it being a floodplain. It still remains a floodplain. We are discussing with CVC some of our options. I know that Infrastructure Services is doing some work to mitigate the flooding there. We will be speaking with CVC to how to, if it is an option to renovate it, to expand the existing footprint in that area, then we would work closely with CVC to do so. And if I may, you mentioned the firefighters and that you still want to make sure that their needs are met. We did speak with them this week, and I've heard over and over again that they need a functional facility. They're not looking for bells and whistles. They need something to be able to perform their job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that the report does not suggest moving forward with the $32 million, $30 million fire hall, just for the record for the public. It's just notifying council that this is how the costs have changed since the initial approval of the current plan, and just notifying us that staff are taking it away to look for alternatives and to bring us back an appropriate recommendation.
Okay.
So thank you for your concerns. Was there anybody else in the gallery wishing to ask a question? Sure, come on up. And again, name and address for the record, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Ugolini Rick, Cedar Drive, Orangeville. My comment is tonight is 2 collisions seen over 3 days at Tim Hortons in the north end of Orangeville. Well, in 6 days, now there's 3. Now, I didn't witness it a week ago Saturday. I was there, and the car was a total write-off. Now, I really don't care about people hitting the bollard that's in the middle of a drive lane. But what concerned me a week ago Saturday was I walked over and I saw 2 police units there, fire, and I did see a supervisor of ambulance. All our emergency services. Who is paying for those services when people are hitting that bollard and in the plaza or the mall?
Well, emergency services are often dispatched depending on how the call was called in to 911. When they're dispatched, they will respond, and those who aren't needed will leave the scene. For fire specifically, we do bill for motor vehicle accidents, and insurance will pay for that. But for police and ambulance, it's taxpayers are paying for response of emergency services.
Now, the thing that I'm here about is the taxpayer, okay? I saw 2 units there. Now, this bollard is a safety risk to vehicles, vehicle owners, and the citizens of Orangeville and Dufferin County when valuable resources like police, fire, and ambulance services to a vehicle crash with the bollard because of poor design. Now, does it need to be there? I was actually there again today. And all that bollard does is hold the sign that says Tim Hortons this way. Well, I just happened to glance over as I was taking a picture there today of the surrounding area, and there's a sign to the left and a sign to the right. Why does that bollard have to be there? Now, I have witnessed 4 crashes there in the last year myself. My wife has witnessed one, and I can't tell you how many more crashes there have been there. And as a taxpayer, that's coming back on me and the county of Dufferin because the OPP is now providing services because they're so shorthanded. Now, why can't the town charge them for it? I mean, but that's about all I have to say. It just makes me upset. I don't care about the people who hit the boulevard. Okay, that's their problem. I care about the taxpayers of Orangeville who has to supply the services for people. Let's see now, how do you put this? As
Thank
my
you.
wife would say, you can't fix stupid.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Ugolini. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Seeing none, we will move on then. Okay, so presentations, petitions, and delegations. Item 12.1 is no longer able to attend tonight, so we will move into 12.2, which is Darla Fraser, the CEO, and Sherry Marks, the chair of the Orangeville Public Library Board, regarding the 2025 budget. Both come up. Perfect. And just a reminder, you have a total of 5 minutes, so your clock will start.
Speak fast.
Thank you.
So Sherry Marks and Darla Fraser, good evening, Mayor Post and councillors. On behalf of the entire library board, I want to thank you for this time this evening. As Mayor Post has previously stated, the town's strategic plan is meant to inspire us to consider how we can work together to achieve a prosperous and sustainable community. We believe the library is an integral part of this plan, as well as our community. It provides innovative programs, creates thoughtful partnerships, and is committed to community engagement. The library creates a vibrant and inclusive space for everyone to connect, to discover, and soar. The library board is independently governed by the Ontario Public Library Act. Even though the board governs with a library hat, our values harmonize with the principles defined by council. This synergy enables us to test new ideas in our pursuit of intellectual freedom and community learning. Our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion is unwavering, and we actively address systemic biases and engage with marginalized groups, promoting a diverse range of perspectives and experiences within our programs. To share some statistics, our memberships grew by 1,000 year over year. We have had more than 85,000 visitors. We have had over 9,000 attendees to our programs, outreach, and events. And the circulation of both physical and electronic books and resources has increased. All of this is because of the excellent product produced by the library and the services delivered by our amazing staff. As we know, services are expensive, and the library is no exception. Until now, these benefits have been difficult to assess. However, the organizations on this slide have worked together to find a way to value the investment made in libraries. They created the Valuing Ontario Public Libraries Toolkit, aka VOLT, which provides a way of determining the financial value to a community for each dollar invested in their library, thereby providing a calculated ROI, although the return is a social one, not a financial one. So the International Federation of Library Associations recently published their first trend report since 2013. We want to highlight trend 7, that people are seeking community connections, spaces to share are the key. So to build an equitable society, space and resource sharing are key. This includes trends around isolation and an intensification of local initiatives that build community. It also talks about new ways of connecting, about how online communities can be beneficial, and the impact that more flexible working patterns are having on our community. We are seeing these trends locally, and all are being considered by the library. The library board approved our 2025 estimates in August, so a while ago, focusing on continued growth and the enhancement of services. Those estimates included an additional 1,000 hours for programming, as well as a full-time community engagement specialist. We understand that the direction of town has recently changed to prioritize underfunded, high-risk core services, and the board acknowledges this direction. Even though we stand firm on our long-term strategic plan, we understand the need to hold off this year on library service level requests in our board-approved budget. The board hopes to work closely with the CFO in preparation for the 2026 budget. This particular slide shows the difference between the library board approved budget, which was a 7.9% increase over prior year, and what we understand will be the recommended budget by town staff based on the focus on core critical items only. Just some extra information. According to the Public Library Act, there are little opportunities for the library board to generate their own revenues. We eliminated overdue fines in order to remove barriers to our services. The cost of memberships to non-Orangeville residents increased to $199.50 per household, and this is based on the average cost of a household in Orangeville plus an administrative fee to those that are non-Orangeville residents. Yep. Sorry. Yep. I'm just in the essence of time. I'm bypassing the capital budget slides. Our 2025 priorities are simple yet extremely important. To connect, increase partnerships, programming, including connecting with the town EDI committee, Discover to complete the makerspace construction and open it to the public, SOAR, which will be life or long-term financial and staff planning. Our library is a treasured town asset, and it contributes to a strong and more dynamic Orangeville by building community, championing inclusivity, encouraging literacy, and stimulating a lifelong love of learning. I am on my last slide. As the chair of the library board, I know our library team is resourceful and resilient, and they will make the most of the resources that are provided. We encourage council to consider our budget estimates in their entirety. However, we understand the current year constraints. Your financial support will not only contribute to the library's vitality, but also enhance the quality of life for everyone in Orangeville. Remember that funding provided to a library is a great investment in the future of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marks and Ms. Fraser, for being here. Was there questions? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Stevens, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think you answered this question for me, but it's to do with out-of-town residents. What's the total cost that they actually have to pay to use our library?
That's the $199.50.
Okay, does that cover your costs?
Yeah, that's the cost from the previous numbers plus an administrative fee. So it covers the cost plus we added a small administrative fee. So it does cover.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, through your worship. Hello, Ms. Marks. I see one full-time person you're asking for in June of 2025. Are you expanding the hours, or you just need another person for operations?
So that's the community engagement specialist. That was approved inside our budget when we went through from in August. We understand that's not going to be coming forward to council when the entire roll-up happens.
Thank you for the clarification. Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Marks and Ms. Fraser and other members of the board who are in attendance this evening. As one of the two appointees of council on the library board, very pleased with your presentation, but also very proud to be a part of the group that assembles on a monthly basis for our meetings. There are a couple of things I wanted to ask in my role as council, and you talked about, of course, the social ROI, which I'm always impressed, again, with libraries within our society. It's very important to take that as really as the key point of your presentation. But it's the other, which is the financial ROI that you made reference to. Some examples, room rentals, the idea of proctoring, I guess historically proctoring in many locations was not being charged or is potentially being charged. Are there some best practices that you can reference or have, some examples that you could provide very quickly that other libraries within, say, the GTA who are also looking at the financial ROI?
Ms. Marks or Ms. Fraser?
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Andrews. I believe, okay, I just lost my train of thought. So the question is?
An example of financial ROI in other municipal library systems.
So other ways boards are generating their own revenue. One idea would be to rent the building for different options. Again, we've recently had a request for a wedding at the library. That will be coming to the board for consideration. And so it's things like that where we can share the space, or there are some charges for materials used once we get to the makerspace,
Yes.
but really libraries exist to save people money, not to make money. And
Understood.
the social return on investment based on our 2023 data, which of course we'll remember the Mill Street Library was closed for 10 months, is coming out at a 3.89% return on investment. So for every $1 invested, we're hoping to come back early next year with the results from 2024, expecting that to be even higher.
And that's a key point from an ROI perspective, I think, that we need to hear. If I may, this is just, again, waving the flag proudly about some of the initiatives that are taking place with the library. For example, the EDI partnership. As chair of the EDI committee for the town, I am so pleased to see not only the initiatives that have taken place for a number of years with the library, but of course some opportunities that are in fact being partnered in the coming months and the coming years, I hope. But again, kudos to your team, kudos to your leadership and the board for looking at ways of engaging our community. And very, very pleased to see some of the things that are happening.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Sherwood, and then Councillor Stevens.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Darla. Nice to see you ladies. I loved seeing the statistics you provided, like 85,000 visitors. That's really exciting. And almost as much, the 75,800 are e-resources. Can you give me an example of e-resources? And I do have another question, but I'd like to hear an example of what e-resources is, that you had 75,000
Ms. Fraser?
users.
So that, sorry, through you, Madam, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood, that would include all of the electronic books downloaded through Libby. It would include books and magazines downloaded through Hoopla. We also have a number of different library resources. I'm trying to think of the name with the news. And Press Reader is the one that I couldn't think of. So all of those include opportunities for card holders to go in and download either books, movies, videos, and 85,000.
Without physically coming into either of the locations.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. I have a follow-up, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
I know, Sherry, you jumped over it quickly about your capital expenditures. And I know it's down the road, but one thing that did jump out at me was the $11 million future development. I'm trying to find the screen. Forget what year it was going to show in, I believe 2028. Again, this is, maybe going with the cart before the horse, but for what location? At Alder Street, or is this a combination of both?
So through you, Mayor, opposed to Councillor Sherwood, that $11 million is a placeholder from when we went through the entire strategic plan a few years ago, and it was the entire project. So in order to ensure that we don't lose sight of all of that information and resources that were put into that, I guess, strategic plan, we put in, that was the number at the time. So that number wouldn't be realistic anymore. Things have changed enough over the years. So that is a placeholder to ensure that anyone looking every single year at the numbers recalls that I guess all of that work was already done. So we don't have to redo it. Money has already been spent on it, and it'll go into the overall facilities review, right? So it's just that $11 million is a placeholder, and we just keep pushing it further out every year that it rolls over.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you got rid of the going and collecting the fees that were outstanding. How many books do you lose a year?
That would be a Ms. Fraser question.
Ms. Fraser, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Stevens, we find that since we've removed the fines, Yes, we still have people that don't return their items. They're actually coming back more than they were before because staff are taking extra time to follow up and remind people of their due dates. And now it's fine free for overdue days from the due date. There is a board-approved policy that sets out different timelines, and there is a point at which if the book is not returned, it is billed in its entirety with a service charge, and that gets invoiced and comes right out of our collection.
It's just the fine, not the cost of the product.
All right. Thank you.
Was there any additional items? Any questions? No? Thank you both very much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we will move over to Nancy Johnson, Director of Strategic Initiatives from McSweeney and Associates for the Economic Development and Culture Strategy. Ms. Johnston has requested 10 minutes, so I do need a motion from Council approving a 10-minute extension. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. Ms. Johnson is joining us virtually, so I see you're on there now. I will turn it over to you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much for giving me 10 minutes. So good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm really pleased to be here and to be able to present the 5-year economic development strategy. So I'm just going to share here. Okay. So to start off with, I just wanted to tell you that that we've worked with many municipalities, and we really felt that the town of Orangeville is a really well-balanced community. It really offers a lot, as you know, to the community, and really is has that great historic downtown, has some commercial and industrial businesses. You've got that convenient location, a strong creative sector, and you are the regional center for Dufferin County. The purpose of the strategy for the town of Orangeville, for the economic development strategy, is to really position the town of Orangeville as a fully integrated community of choice for business investment, retention, and growth by building on its existing assets. We have aligned the economic development and culture strategy with the corporate strategy, and there are 2 of the 4 goals within that corporate strategy that are supported through actions identified in the economic development and culture strategy. That would be goal 3 around community vitality and goal 4 around economic resilience. There is a tourism strategy in place, and so we really felt that it was really important that the economic development and culture strategy align with the tourism strategy, as well as tourism is a key economic driver for the town. The other alignment is with the Dufferin County Economic Development Strategy. Orangeville, the town of Orangeville, has been working with Dufferin County to support their strategy, as well as Dufferin has been working with Orangeville. So that way that the strategies are aligned and there's less duplication, people working together. The process we followed over the past 6 months is really around discovering the community, defining and working with doing stakeholder consultations, developing and delivering the actual product. So under Discover, what was involved there is we did a document review, reviewing 20 key town and region documents, the economic development website, and undertook an informal investment readiness assessment. The other 2 things that we did were we completed a community analysis, which it's quite a significant document, which really gives you a lot of detail on the community, as well as we did a comparator community analysis with a number of other communities, just to see where Orangeville sat and looking and sort of finding out what other communities were doing that were kind of the same size and similar to Orangeville. So that was around all our quantitative analysis. And then we did qualitative analysis. So that is a around stakeholder consultations. We did one-on-one interviews, which a number of you have been interviewed. We did focus groups, an online survey, and also did a staff priority setting session with key staff members. 125 participants. It was a really great, diverse group of people that we did talk to and did participate. So people from the town, from the county, both staff and town elected officials. We had representation from the arts and culture side, from businesses, and from creatives, workforce organizations. So really good, diverse group of people that we were able to meet with. The next part is about developing. So this is really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the strategy. We developed a score, which is a McSweeney SWOT analysis, and that was presented at our working session. The working session was over a 3-hour period. We had 31 participants come out, and those participants were to come up with the actions, so draft actions based on the 5 themes that we have up on the slide. So, so what we did then is that we actually took all the information that they provided to us, and then we refined and defined those actions. So basically, at the end, it's your strategy. It was very community-based. We provided and worked are providing realistic and doable actions. So that's what that's a strategy. So I'm just going to go into sort of the priority areas of focus and the themes, just so that you can understand it a little bit further. So there were 3 priority areas of focus: developing a resilient business community, supporting small business, and fostering tourism and culture. So those 3 they really do overlap a lot when you look at the actions. So some of the things that are in resilient business also support small business. They also foster tourism and culture. So really, the developing a resilient business community speaks to the importance of a diverse community or a diverse economy, and the importance of creating the environment to retain and grow existing businesses and to attract new businesses. Small business is really the heart of Orangeville and really provides a majority of the jobs in the town, and it's really important to provide support for them. And then the last one, tourism culture, they're very intertwined, and their culture really does support tourism, and so that was why the 3rd one is in there. The next thing we talk about is themes and connecting, enhancing, and building. These really stood out. So we thought that, the first thing was really connecting with Orangeville. So it's really around addressing the needs to better understand and serve the business community. The second part is enhancing Orangeville and really looking at ways of improving what is already a well-established community. The third one is really around building Orangeville and identifying the actions that are required for Orangeville's future success. So connecting, why is this important? It's really to have a better understanding of what the businesses require for success and what new businesses may be looking for in the community. Enhancing Orangeville, why is it important? It's important to enhance and diversify the services and assets to continue to effectively support Orangeville's existing and potential businesses. And the third one is really about the future and building Orangeville so that it will be successful and over the future. So so just to sum it all up, there are 17 actions under Connect, 16 under Enhance, 5 under Build. So there's a total of 38 actions. Each action comes up with we have the action, the rationale behind it, and the alignment of the 3 different priority focus areas. And then the last is these are the top 5 actions that will be immediately completed as soon as the adoption of the report is completed. And there's an implementation plan also that you will be provided with, which actually shows more detail on each of the actions. So it'll talk about timelines, etc. But this is just sort of a smaller actions, just so that you can see less detail. So anyway, so the first action is about the Economic Development and Culture Office is to be the primary resource for business-related inquiries. The second one is leading the town's recognition and promotion of local businesses. The third is about developing that buy local campaign. The fourth about building capacity to support succession planning for local business owners. And the fifth was around enhancing and promoting the existing tourism directory. So thank you, and thank you for hiring us. Thank you to Katrina and her team for working closely with the McSweeney team. Katrina really challenged us and pushed us, and I think you have a really comprehensive economic development and culture strategy now that's going to help you to help guide you through the next 5 years.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnston. We will have some questions from Council. So Councillor Andrews, you can go first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank you, Nancy, for being a part of this exercise. I also want to recognize Katrina Lemire and her team for really being leaders in this exercise. This is my second term on council. And, I think for those of us who have been around this particular forum for quite some time, I still can go back a number of years when I was on the EDC committee itself. And sometimes when you go through this exercise where a consultant report just gets done and sits on the shelf, this is one that's not going to be sitting on the shelf. You can see the action items that are already going to be implemented immediately. I think through Nancy and McSweeney's leadership and again, partnering with Katrina and all the participants, you saw the desire to, in fact, see change happen in our community. We have a robust small business community. I think I've spoken about this before, Your Worship. We can't be chasing smokestacks anymore, and that's not, in fact, the philosophy of this. Where I wanted to just focus on, my comment and in a question is, the opportunity to connect is certainly apparent within the ED office. There are a number of initiatives that have taken place. I take a look at one of the low-hanging fruit ideas that is already taking place coming up next week is just reconnecting with our real estate professionals and having as many who are, telling us what's going on, and there may be other touch points within those discussions. But I think what we have here is a strategy that is going to be not sitting on a shelf. It's going to be utilized. It's going to benefit our community. It's going to benefit our small businesses and those that are medium to potentially maybe something a little bit bigger. Nancy, you had highlighted something that caught my ear, and I think anecdotally also the mayor and I and other members of council have also seen this. We talk about business diversity. We're seeing significant diverse ownership in our community, and having spoken to some of our new proprietors in our community, they're not necessarily from our community. They're coming from outside of our community, but they see a reason to invest in our community because the community, in fact, is growing. The community is, in fact, supportive. And I think this is, again, spot on to where we need to be moving forward. The last piece was the cultural side, and I'm talking about the artisan side, the growing and continued growth in that area. We have a robust culture community, performing arts, visual arts, and this is also part of this whole piece that's going to enable us through the Economic Development Office to support it. So really no question, just a comment, Your Worship, but I thought it was very important to share this because I think we are in very good hands with the report that is going to be, again, utilized appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Was there additional questions from members of council? My comment would be similar and aligns with Councillor Andrew as well. I just wanted to make comment that what I really loved about reading the strategy was that it's not a restart of anything. It wasn't a rip up the old strategy and start new. It was really a build upon what we've already been doing well and continue to enhance and grow. I love the mention of developing a buy local campaign to support the success of the Love Orangeville campaign. Again, building upon things that we've already done and continuing to grow. So I just wanted to give kudos to both Katrina and McSweeney for recognizing that our community is already doing really great things and that now it's just about continuing to build on some successful strategies that we've already had. So thank you for your time. I don't believe there's any questions, which is a sign of a report and a strategy well written. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, Council, we will move into the consent agenda. There are a list of items under staff reports, correspondence, and committee and board minutes that are compiled to facilitate a single vote for Council consideration. Council may remove any item from any of those areas for individual consideration. Was there any items that any members of Council wish to pull? Councillor Stevens, I'll start with you.
Thank you. 13.1.3, I have a conflict, so I'll have to ask to be removed for that one.
Thank you.
I do have more if you
go ahead. You can do one more. Yep.
13.1.8, the facility needs assessment. And I'm sure someone else will do it, but 13.1.7.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Was there any other items? Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Andrews.
Yes, the 13.1.8, you've covered that already,
yep.
Councillor, correct? Okay, 13.1.4.
13.1.4. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. As has already been highlighted, 13.1.7. The one I'd like to poll is 13.1.6, just for some clarification.
Okay. Anything else? Councillor McIntosh, you're good? Okay, I'm going to pull 13.1.5, which is the CBC appointment, because we do need to add a name in there. And then just for commentary for the community, I'm also going to pull 13.2.4, which is the correspondence from the BIA. Okay, so last call. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to pull? Okay, so the recommendation is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the following items which were removed for individual consideration, which include 13.1.3, 13.1.4, 13.1.5, 13.1.6, 13.1.7, 13.1.8, and 13.2.4. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will start with 13.1.3 and ask that Councillor Stevens step out. Councillor Stevens did declare a conflict at the opening part of the meeting to 13.1.3. So I will read the recommendation in the report that report CPS 2024-69 2025 consolidated fees and charges be received, and that council approve the 2025 consolidated fees and charges bylaw, and that the registered minor sports group fee reduction policy approved by council through resolution number 11 on February 14th, 2011 be rescinded, and that the cancellation fees for all parks and recreation rentals, programs, and services policy approved by council through resolution number 17 on January 12, 2009 be rescinded, and that the youth subsidization policy approved by council through resolution number 50-87 on February 2nd, 1987 be rescinded. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Andrews, was there any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will bring Councillor Stevens back in. Thank you, Councillor Stevens. 13.1.4, the 2024 Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater Study, CPS 2024-75. Councillor Sherwood, I will turn it to you for questions first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not really going to be asking a question. I just wanted to kind of just voice my position on this. The study is phenomenal. It really opened our eyes as to, several things that need to be done here. I'm just having a really hard time accepting the fact of a 15% increase to the base amount, 10% increase to water, and 5% to our wastewater. I know this is going to be a hard hit on some of our residents, but if you look at the report and the detail that has been put before us, you can see that these rate increases are justified, especially when we look at having, I believe it's $171 million in assets that we could have potentially have to replace. So again, even though I'm not happy about these rate increases, I am going to approve them because I trust in our staff and the consultant that we do need the money put away, especially for the anticipated expenditures that will come many years down the road.
Thank you, Councillor Sherrod. I appreciate your position on that, and I think a lot of us are in the same boat. We're feeling the same. Was there any other questions or comments on that item from anybody? I think you've articulated our stance very well. It is a difficult one because we know that affordability and economics are challenging right now, but with the weight of the infrastructure charges landing on the municipal shoulders, unfortunately, we've got a lot of capital expenditures coming up. So with that said, the recommendation is that report CPS 2024-75, 2025 water, wastewater, and stormwater study be received, and that council approve the water and wastewater rates as per the 2024 water and wastewater rate study with the requested amendments to the non-compliant, non-metered accounts flat fee, and that council requests the staff report back in 2025 to provide a recommendation to council on potential implementation of the stormwater rates as per the 2024 stormwater rate study. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens. Any last questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Up next, we have the Credit Valley Conservation Board appointment, CPS 2024-76. The recommendation is that report CPS 2024-76, Credit Valley Conservation CVC Board appointment be received, and that council appoint, fill in the blank, as the Orangeville member on the CVC Board. Council, I will turn it over to you. Councillor McIntosh? All right. So we will fill in the blank with Councillor McIntosh's name. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens. Any last questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that is, oh, are you going to vote against it? Okay, good. Perfect. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. Okay, up next, we will move into 13.1.6, the Integrated Asset Work Order Planning, Building, License, and Permit Management System Funding, CPS 2024-79. Councillor Andrews, I will start with you.
Thank you. There's always time for humor in a council meeting, and I'm glad we had some here this evening. I also wanted to just make a comment, and I'm so glad to see that we're moving ahead with this initiative. And sometimes those of us on council have to say there are right times to spend money and then there are wrong times to spend money. This is the right time because you take a look at the critical infrastructure that exists from a corporate perspective, the connection from an IT perspective, it makes absolute sense. I do have a question for, and I believe our IT manager is online. So Mr. Navalny, thank you for being a co-author of this particular report. I read it with a lot of interest. Just for my clarification and maybe other members of council, the allocation that is being asked here highlights very clearly what the reasoning is, but does that also include some of the equipment that is potentially going to be a part of this, I guess, connection between all the different departments to digitize some of our services? Or would that go through the general manager? Who would that be the appropriate respondee for this question?
Ms. Minikila, that's over to you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Andrews. My understanding is that there's no additional physical equipment required. Okay. Is that what you're speaking
That's
of?
What I'm speaking of.
Yeah, it's the software.
It is the software
required. But that said, okay, we do have our expert on the line, and if I am mistaken, I'm happy for him to correct me.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Navalny, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Lovely answer.
Any other questions on this item, Council? Okay, the recommendation then is that report CPS 2024-79, Integrated Asset Work Order Planning, Building, License, and Permit Management System funding be received, and that Council direct staff to increase the budget for project 20391 Enterprise Asset Management Solution by $277,945 funded from the Water Reserve, Wastewater Reserve, Building Reserve, and the Corporate System Reserve with the allocations that are listed in the recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next up, we have the construction of the Orangeville Fire Station, update CMS 2024-21. Councillor Stevens, I will turn it to you first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to thank Ms. Savage and her team for bringing this forward. It's not great news, but it's news and we'll have to deal with it one way or another. I just want to put out right off the top that we obviously can't afford, $32 million to move forward. So I'm gonna jump out, and I could support either option 1, 3, and possibly 4. I don't like number 2. I have my reasons. I can elaborate, or we can just move forward. I'm not sure how you want to do it, Madam Mayor. So
you can go ahead and give your feedback in
Okay.
a public session while you're here. Yeah,
All
go
right,
ahead.
Okay. Descoping the project. Yeah, I think we obviously need to do that. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, I don't like splitting up the service. I think they need to be within one building whenever we're get this project finalized. Option 3, renovate. I don't know what that price is going to look like. I'd love to see a report come back on that. And option 4, I'd rather move forward than put it off longer and longer.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you very much. As the newest member of the CBC, I will certainly be fighting to have the floodplain changed. I think it's quite frankly outrageous that it was ever a floodplain. It has never flooded. It has never come close to flooding. I know there's some pictures out there circulating of it flooded almost. That was because the bridge was blocked with debris. I was there that day and it was not flooded just because of the weather. So again, I will be fighting for that. To Councillor Stevens' point about separating the services, other places do that. City of Guelph would have 8 separate fire stations, for example, administration in one, a couple of bays. They even put them in residential areas now with one truck. As long as you have full-time staff, you can do that. The problem becomes with the volunteers. They need to get to the station, so you have to be wary of where you're going to put it. I have no problem splitting it. Even if you want to split the volunteer truck and put one truck in a bay in the new area, there's things we can work with, and we'll wait for staff's feedback on that. But just my opinion. Thank you.
CAO Smith wanted to weigh in about the CBC.
Yeah, I just want to comment on one isolated point, and the general manager can speak about other ones when council's ready. And we appreciate the newest member of the CBC boards, although the agenda hasn't been approved or the bylaw hasn't been written. We're working very collaboratively with CBC. They've been nothing but helpful to date. We re-engaged them with discussions, and they've been incredibly responsive. Our general manager has a meeting scheduled with them in the next week or two. So we are working collaboratively with them on how do we mitigate and lower the risk of flood impact. So we appreciate the offer, and then we may ask at some point you lobby or advocate on our behalf. But at this point, the CBC has been nothing but a willing and a cooperative partners in this particular file and other files as well.
So put your protest signs away for now, Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Andrews.
Got some humor here tonight. Wow. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to make a comment, and then I will have a question. Like my colleagues on council, and again, I have the utmost respect from Councillor McIntosh being a former fire chief on our community and historic reference to some of the activity that's taken place on Dawson. I also have enormous respect for our firefighters. There is no reason to mitigate and or lessen their importance as part of this decision-making process. But at the same time, Ms. Savage, you were very clear to one of the members of our community on the consultation you've had with him. And so there is this integration of discussion. I know there's always an opportunity to take a look at, new facilities. But I also stand firm on the fact that in our previous term of council, we were talking about this and we had one cost and things have gone up substantially. So I think that what we have to do is to really take a deep breath. We have to also have a deep swallow and understand where we are in 2024 moving forward. Councillor Stevens, you also pointed something out that I think was very important, is that, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be. I have a lot of experience in going through these types of exercises, and the longer you have dialogue, unfortunately, as we know, things will end up costing more. Having said that, the options that are in front of us, they are unique, they're interesting. If our newest member of the CVC board can, potentially provide some advocation for us and look at alternatives, as Mr. Smith has also identified, that would be, I think, one way, looking at some form of renovation. But there are unique ways and synergies to connect with the existing firefighters, be that on one site or, as Councillor McIntosh has also indicated, on another site. Looking at the designs that we've spoken about, there's going to have to be some kind of rethinking, but not a descoping. I do not feel that we have to rip apart everything that has gone on. But my question to you, Ms. Savage, is pertaining to some of the costs to date. And I know that this is not included in the report, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but it is in fact public knowledge. We've gone through some architectural costs for a design on Centennial, if I'm correct in saying so. There was an allocation of the total amount for the project so far on what has been spent. We're talking about the lands on Centennial plus some of the architectural costs. Can you refresh my memory on what the architectural costs were, the architectural design costs? Because again, I know that there was a certain figure for the land purchase, but isolating that of course is one of those items that, like a design that you wish you'd like to have. Sometimes you can, tear it up and then move on to something else. So is that readily available? And if it's not readily available, we can certainly look for that documentation at some other point. But
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Andrews. We've spent just over about $3 million to date for the project. That includes the sale of the land, some earthworks, and design costs. I'm just looking. We did have an approval of a floor plan back in June of 2022. 2021, there's been some significant changes, so we've incurred the cost of change orders since then. The report does speak to how the type of changes we've gone through. At this moment,
okay, and that's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to have that isolated item, and maybe we can have that provided to us at a future council meeting, but and or as the reports may evolve. I do like the idea of possible renovation, but I also don't want to have a situation where we're feeling like we're sardines at the existing facility. And I think that that's the concern that I have. Many of us who've been fortunate to be on site at the Dawson Street location, again, the ability to move the apparatus in and out appropriately, the space that is there at this current point, there may be some opportunities, and I don't want to lose focus of the opportunity that really you work tremendously hard at, and I also want to again wave your flag proudly on the work that you've done for the training component. I mean, this is a huge win for our community, and I don't want to lose that opportunity of, the $3.6 million connection to training from a regional perspective. So no doubt further information is going to be coming to council, but I think, we were all wanting to express our thoughts on this particular piece. There's no way I would be supporting a $32 million plus facility. Just not going to happen on my watch. But at the same time, I think all of us are also thinking the same way. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I'll just chirp in. I appreciate that this isn't actually a full report, that it's just an update, and I want to thank Ms. Savage and the project team for bringing that, and the fact that you're not hard strung on, we got to go ahead with this brand new facility, because I think you can feel, get the taste of the flavor of the room here, that we're probably not going to be saying, yes, let's spend $32 million on a fire hall. So I look forward to the report. speaking of which, I hate to put you on the spot, but it says you're going to report back. Any estimate? Are we looking at a 6-month report back, 3-month, or a year?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. Councillor, we are currently working with our architect. We are meeting with them once a week to figure out what does the descoping look like, what are the options to build just the suppression and the training. I don't have an exact time frame. We are under a bit of a time pressure just because of the building code changes. We are hoping to have, we're hoping that descoping works and we'll get within a construction budget that is reasonable and we can continue with the project. Having failed that, then we do need to look further into the other options, which will take a bit more time. I'm hoping the descoping time will have an answer end of year, beginning of new year. Again, the architect is working furiously at descoping the project right now. We've given them 10 significant ideas in how to do that. So moving the project along as quickly as we can at this point.
Good, Councillor Sherwood. Yeah. Any additional questions? My final comment would be that I echo the commentary from council. I think it's important to note that not only does council not support necessarily moving forward with a $32 million project, but staff doesn't either, which is why it came to us in the first place. So it was identified by staff that this was an unreasonable request moving forward and that there was some work that needed to be done to move that forward. So from the finance team to the community services team to the fire team, it's been recognized, and the senior leadership team, it's been recognized that this is an opportunity that we really need to work on moving forward. So thank you for all the work so far, and we look forward to your updated report. We do need a motion just to receive the update, please. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? And that is carried. We will move now to 13.1.8, the Facility Needs Assessment Study Update, CMS 2024-15. Councillor Stevens, I will turn it to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess, Ms. Savage, you're on the hot seat again. I'm just wondering your update. So for Tony Rose Pool, I know on July 8th of 2024, council, the pool was closed. So you're asking for the assessment to go into 2026. So I guess the pool remains closed.
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. Councillor Stevens, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Stevens?
Yes, sorry. Through you. Is there anything that we can do besides, just pay I think it was 1.1 or something and fix it. But I mean, there was a lot of residents that really wanted that pool back and operational.
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. Councillor Stevens, at this point, there's nothing we can do to fix the mechanics of the pool unless we are going to make a significant investment. Dehumidification unit, and as I've said in the past, Council considered purchasing a $1.1 million dehumidification unit, but you would be attaching new technology to old technology, and the 51-year-old technology be attached to, I'm sure, would just eventually push the breakdown somewhere else. At this point, unless we know exactly what we're going to do with that pool, I would not recommend investing money into that pool at this time. We do need a plan. We need a funding plan. We need a feasibility plan for all of our community centers. What are we going to do with the community centers within the next 10 to 20 years? What we are going to do, and as we know from the library presenting this evening, their strategy had recommended that we invest $11 million in expansion of the library. Our Parks and Rec master plan is saying the same thing. Invest the money and you will have the facilities that you need for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. As the report suggests, those recommendations are big ticket items. It was suggested in some cases to close the B Arena at Tony Rose. We all know that it's not the functionality of that needs to be upgraded, move it over to Alder. Again, those are large ticket items. Until we have a comprehensive review of what our facilities need and how we should make those investments, I would not recommend putting any money into a pool. I agree. Our residents who depended on Tony Rose are at a bit of a crossroad. We are doing our best to accommodate the majority of swimmers over at Alder. It is a bit further to travel, so I know we've been working with our infrastructure services group to adjust the location of the bus shelter. May have even been some changes to the orange route or one of the transportation routes. But we're continuing to look at ways to improve the services out of Alder Pool. It is a large enough pool. I was there today. There was a lane swim. I counted about 8 people doing a lane swim. We can definitely accommodate more at our noon hour swim. I know Aquafit is very popular. Aquafit is a separate challenge. We are struggling to find more instructors. So having a second pool would not meet the needs of the Aquafit participants because we don't have the number of staff, but we're looking at training our own staff and continually recruiting certain staff.
One more?
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Stevens.
So you just said 2026, early 26? Can it not be done next year?
Ms. Savage.
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Stevens, good question. So if we defer the facility needs assessment, so as the report mentioned, there are some things that we know today, what our consultants have told us in the past who have done community consultations, they've given some recommendations. Are those recommendations still true today? My team and I were going to go out and, as I've said in the past, pressure test what we know from our consultant reports, what we know from industry standards, best practices, go out to the community and say, is this something that we still need for our community or has the needs changed? That's the part we want to defer. And we want to defer it to a point where we can attach it to a funding strategy. So any recommendations we make and bring forward to council, we will have costing attached to it. We will also have the backing of the community to say, yes, this is what we need. We're going to take the time to figure out the lay of the land. Until we have the money in the bank to be able to fund any of those recommendations, I would be hesitant to go out to the community to ask what they're interested in because needs change quickly. An example is we look at indoor space, building indoor space. We know recently that our local soccer group has found indoor space. And are they still in need of indoor space or they found indoor space? So if we go and find out what the recommendations are and then we wait a year or 2 or 3 to fund it, because these are going to be big ticket items, as I said, there's going to be too much of a gap in knowing what we know in year 1 versus being able to fund it in year 3.
Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Sherwood.
Great. Thank you very much, Your Worship. And Ms. Savage, I'm not putting you on the hot seat here, but I also sympathize and understand where you're coming from as for this report. And again, the report was well laid out. The mitigation piece, and I'm glad that you provided the clarification to Councillor Stevens, but just for clarification on communication to those that would be typical users at Tony Rose, how is that being laid out? Because I do recall, and you made reference to, of course, somewhat of a route change to accommodate those that would be, people are creatures of habit, and they kind of put their stamp on where they like to go and do certain things, and that seems to be the feedback that many of us have had for those that have utilized Tony Rose from a swimming perspective. So I do have a second question, but so what is your strategy, or from a mitigation perspective? You've been in touch with these individuals through the recreation department, and okay. Ms. Doherty is going to provide us. Thank you.
Very good communication with our participants, our full-time and our part-time staff on pool deck every day having conversations. And actually our recreation supervisor, Stephanie Lepe, today just mentioned that staff will be making some announcements this week, especially with the approval of the rates and fees that went forward tonight. That's the best form of communication we have, is our face-to-face communication. And then we do our email communication through our recreation software and send out any updates that our participants need. And of course, our customer service staff are in daily communication with the participants as well.
Great, thank you, Ms. Doherty. My second question is to Ms. Savage. With Tony Rose swimming pool sitting idle, what are the implications with it sitting idle financially and or structurally? Has the water been taken out?
Ms. Savage, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Andrews. Yes, the water was taken out. We have an exhaust system running in there during the warmer seasons, but it's still warmer, trying to remove some of the humidity in the air. Our maintenance staff are doing checks all the time on air quality, looking at how is the foundation of the pool happening. We did discover a crack at the bottom of the pool, and there is groundwater coming up through that pool. It was, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the pool and that part of the facility was built on creek or some sort of natural stream that's running there. So that would cause issues in the future as well if we were to reconstruct.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a hard time trying to understand the reasoning for delaying this study from 2025 to 2026. Is it because the staff are trying to do the needs study? Is it staffing issue that you're asking for this delay?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Sherwood. No, staff were ready to deploy and do the research. It is about waiting to determine what a funding strategy would be. So right now, I think it was the beginning of October, we had our finance team present to council they're developing an integrated financial strategy. One of those, there's 6 different chapters. One of those chapters is the reserve framework. How are we going to build those reserves? Right now, there's not enough money in the budget, as we see from the Orangeville Fire Station. We need to de-scope. We are unable to pay for a $32 million fire station. So any other recommendations that may come through for the facility needs assessment are also going to be big ticket items. And at this point, there's no space in our debt to equity ratio to pay for those pieces. So the delay is to let our finance team determine what our financial situation is going to be, and then start thinking about how we're going to modify, renovate, or expand our recreation centers as we focus on our fire center, the fire station. The reason for the delay is because we could go out and check needs now, but if we can't afford it for another 2 years, we're just going to go back out and check needs again. And I would rather utilize staff times elsewhere.
Your Worship. So here we are potentially having another 3-year pool closure, because with the report in front of me, you're asking to report back in 2026 for it to be implemented and approved through the 2027 budget. So again, here we go through a 3-year pool closure potentially that is not going to sit well with our community. I have a real problem. I know we need the facility needs study. I have a problem with the delay request, and I guess I don't have a full understanding of that, which is why I'm probably not going to vote in favor of this, only because I want to see that needs study. I can't understand why it can't come back to us in 2025, be budgeted in 2026, and then at least we're looking at a 2-year, like that still, like this, another 3-year pool closure. I don't think I can go through that again.
CEO Smith?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, and Heather's done an excellent job. There was one point in the report that hasn't been brought out yet, and I wanted to highlight it because it is in the report, but not all members of the public will have read it, is that our pools are not just for Orangeville. You know, they are catchment pools. We have our municipal boundaries, and then we have our catchment boundaries. We are aware that there's other pools being considered to be built in our catchment area, and normally you wouldn't build an asset out of context of what's going on in your catchment area. So Heather, Ms. Savage is working with her counterparts in other municipalities to find out their intents. We don't want to invest in $10 million, $5 million, whatever the number is, and find our neighbor builds the same thing 5 years down the road. So I think that that's an important element where we have been the regional hub for many of our services that is on the cusp of potentially changing with development that's happening in Wellington County. So that's a factor. So when you think, just to rephrase it again, is if we invested in this pool, and the $1 million is for one element, this is probably a $7 million repair to get that pool to something that is reasonable. If all of a sudden the demand goes down by 20% because someone else is building a pool, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. So there is some restraints that we have internally. Financing is one of them. But when you do a SWOT analysis, you look at external weaknesses or external threats, and the potential of someone else building a pool close by will definitely impact that. So I just share that perspective. And we heard from the library, so I'll just prolong my answer a little bit. We heard from the library they have $11 million at need. Well, that's an old number. That number is probably $19 million today. So when we add 32 million, 19 million, 10 million, that type of stuff, I think it's very prudent to give council all of the information, all of the context. So it's not first past the post. It's a thoughtful discussion and a dialogue and decision. We want you to make your informed decisions. So that timing works with what's going on in other communities.
Councillor Sherwood, follow up?
Yes,
And then Councillor McIntosh, then Councillor Stevens.
So again, I'm not against the needs study. I'm against the timeline. So I still will be voting against it because I really want to see this brought further. We've learned tonight several times, years of delay have added years of more costs. I want to know, I would like this to be moved up forward to know at least in 2026, we might be doing something with that facility, not waiting to 2027 when we know that the cost will be even more absorbent.
Councillor McIntosh? Oh, Ms. Savage, do you have something to add? No? Go ahead, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Sherwood. Yes, we all want to make sure that the needs of our community are being met. These are the ways that they live their healthy lives and they have, that we're able to service them properly. As it stands now, what we know is that a consultant report says close Tony Rose Pool. That's the recommendation we'd be floating out into the community. The community will probably say, no, that's not a good idea. They're going to need some sort of water tank, but then it would be a different type of pool. And we'd have to come back to council and say, all right, well, what we know is that we are being told by structural assessment engineers, we're being told by parks and recreation consultants who are experts in the field. From what we know, how that pool has been used, fill rates, we would determine all of that stuff. That recommendation would probably be to close that pool right now. We would then go to the community. Community would say no, but we'd have to find a solution in between, and whatever solution we find, it will be very expensive.
Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. Just for the record, I will be supporting this. We don't have the money now. We won't have it next year. So I don't see the rush for the report. But I guess my question is out of town use. I don't know who to ask this question to, but what percentage of pool users are actually from out of town?
I see Ms. Doherty very excited to answer this question.
Thank you. Meeting, and in spring 2023 at Tony Rose, when that was the only pool in, we had 57% non-resident users. Yeah, I can see you're gobsmacked on that. I'm gobsmacked as well. What we have done to mitigate that is to do a non-resident registration 1 week later than our resident. April 2024, our spring 2024 lessons, our non-resident rate was down to 19%. So huge swing in direction of residents first. Just did our registration for non-residents weeks ago, and we had 1,137 individual registrations on day one. Typically, the majority of those, 90% of those are in the first hour, and the majority of those are for swimming lessons. That was a 27%, that's our winter one, we call it our winter one session. That was a 27% increase our fall this year. So one session later, a 27% increase of residents being able to get into our programs. We will bring you more and more data on the use of Alder Pool. We are looking daily at our usage and looking session to session at our program offerings. So we are filling that space as best we can, not as best we can, but planning for rates across the board.
Thank you.
Josh?
I think we see where the problem is a little bit here. How much extra do non-residents pay? Do you know offhand?
Ms. Doherty, I'm sure knows right offhand.
As of tonight, or as of January 1st, 2025, through you, Madam Mayor, 25% above. Currently, it's 20%. Council just a 5% increase. Of an increase. Our swimming lesson registration efforts focusing on that went up about 6% for 2020.
So it is going to take a long time to get to 10 million. Thank you.
CAO Smith would like to
Yeah,
add something.
I will just comment. So great information. You know, we're using analytics to look at impact. The 25% covers operational costs. It's not used for capital costs and things like that. So I am working with my counterparts through the county to say, hey, much like the library does, you need to pony up. For those capital costs. I've been getting some positive response from them, but we know that if 20 to 25% of our users are from out of town, and if one of our out of town suppliers are potentially building a pool, there'll be significant impact on our usage. Could be.
Councillor Stevens?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. First off, I just want to say, Ms. Savage, your team and yourself are fantastic. So I thank you for your report. Much like Councillor Sherwood, I just can't pass it tonight. I don't feel, I think this is too important to put off into 2026. We might not even be here. And I just feel that we need to discuss this now with this term of council.
Was there any additional questions? We're good right now. Okay, so here's my take. I'll save my questions and comments for last here. I will be supporting deferral of the facility needs assessment study, and here's why. I would really hate to go out to the community, find out what they want, have a great report come back, and us be able to say, that's really great to know, but we can't afford it. So I'm going to put this study on the shelf. I think there was too much time for a long time where we spent a lot of money and a lot of time, both in staff time and consultant time, in doing studies, reports, strategies that never ever got actioned. And with this facility needs assessment study, we know that what is going to come back from this is going to be something we can't action. Right now, we're in such a predicament where critical infrastructure pieces need to be funded. They need to be funded now, and those are priority. I love Tony Rose Pool as well, and I hope that someday we can maybe consider reopening a Tony Rose Pool. But right now, we know based on information that we've received from previous studies, from architectural folks, from structural assessments, that the recommendation is likely going to be that that facility be closed, or that a significant, and by significant, I mean $10+ million, to be made in that facility for us to move forward. And the reality is, we don't have those funds. That right now would be a nice to have, and we're not in a position to fund nice to have things. We know that we can accommodate the majority of needs of our residents at Alder Street Pool, especially at the renovated Alder Street Pool. It was designed in a way to ensure that it could support that capacity, knowing that the recommendations in the past have been to close Tony Rose. This facility needs assessment is really important. And when it comes back, I want us as council or the next council, whoever that is, to be able to make decisions to action those items right away so that we don't end up in a position where we're getting information that is old news by the time we can afford to fund it. And if we do this facility needs assessment study today and have it come back in a few months for us, that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to have staff and team put in all of this work to tell us how much it'll cost, and we're going to say thanks for letting us know, and we're going to shelf it because we can't afford to move it forward. So for those reasons, and for those who are watching who love Tony Rose Pool and who are missing it being open, I sympathize with you. I think all of us on council do. We know that that facility is important. We know that it's been a long-standing important facility within our community. But when we move this forward, we need to do it right. We need to make sure that it's funded appropriately and that we can action the important items that need to be done. And quite honestly, with Tony Rose, it's not just the pool. I know we're focused on the pool today, but there are a lot of other pieces of that facility that are not where we need them to be in order to be the facility that we want it to be. And I think really long term, I'm still doing work with talking to our partners in the county to talk about what their needs are and how we can maybe come together for a regional strategy. I'm still working with outside agencies like YMCA and having meetings and trying to figure out creative solutions to recreation items that we've got here. But really right now, the answer can't be borrowing money to put into a pool that we can't afford to maintain and that we can't afford to get it to the status that the residents in this community quite honestly deserve. So for that reason, I'm going to approve this tonight. And I hope that when the needs come back, that we're going to be in a position with a financial strategy where we can responsibly fund the recommendations of a report. I would hate for a report to come and a study to come that we just put on a shelf. So for those reasons, I'm going to support it. Any last kick at the can for anybody? Okay, so the recommendation is that report CMS 2024-15 Facility Needs Assessment Study update be received and that council approve the deferral of the Facility Needs Assessment Study from 2025 to 2026. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And opposed? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood are opposed. Thank you, Council. We will move on to the next item, which is 13.2.4, the Orangeville Business Improvement Area correspondence regarding public parking at 27 and 29 First Avenue. I made the decision to pull this, and it is just receipt of this item, but we did get some public comment on this specific item. We received a few items of correspondence as a council, and I just wanted, again, for the public record to say that this correspondence from the BIA was their request on what we do with that facility at 27 to 29 First Avenue. Of course, they are looking at public parking. That's a priority for the BIA. I just think it's really important to note that when we receive this correspondence, we are only receiving the correspondence. We are not moving forward with their recommendation. There's no decision attached here. The community is not in a position, or the town is not in a position yet to make determination on what we're doing with that land. We haven't moved anything forward. We're going to be looking at all of our town-owned assets over the next while and making some decisions on how we're going to move forward with some of those pieces. So we receive the OBIA's information. We understand what their request is, and we will take it into consideration when there's recommendations coming forward about that land. So at this time, no decisions are being made. I just thought that was really important to go into public record. Was there any other comments on this item? Okay, so then the motion is to receive item 13.2.4. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Andrews, seconder, Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. We will move into notice of motion prior to meeting. It was mine that was submitted, so I am going to turn the chair over to Councillor McIntosh to chair for this portion of the meeting. Councillor McIntosh, I'll turn it to you for the chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm just trying to pull up on my computer here. It wasn't quite working right. Are there any notice of the motion prior to meeting?
That would be mine.
Go ahead, Mayor Post.
Thank you. I'm going to need my piece of paper back though, because you've stolen my notes. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read out the notice of motion. This is a notice of motion that has been circulated. It began actually in the town of Aurora by Mayor Marakis, and it's a really great understanding of the distribution of taxes on property transactions, and it's a request to both the provincial and federal government to help with the municipal portion of that. So I will read it out here. Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services, which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current source of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and services tax on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistributing a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burden on residents or homebuyers. And whereas a redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives, supporting local economic growth and improving the quality of life for residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Orangeville Council formally requests that the provincial government consider redistributing a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities, and that the Town of Orangeville Council calls on the federal government to allocate a percentage of GST collected on property sales to municipalities, and that this redistribution of the land transfer tax and GST should be structured to provide predictable and sustainable funding to municipalities, allowing for better long-term planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring that local governments receive a fair share of the revenue to address critical infrastructure needs, and that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, Premier Doug Ford, the Honourable Peter Belfenfalvy, Minister of Finance for Ontario, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for Ontario, Dufferin-Caledon MP Kyle Seaback, Dufferin-Caledon MPP, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, and that copies of this resolution be forwarded to all municipalities in the County of Dufferin, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for their endorsement and advocacy. And I would love a seconder, and then I can take questions if the chair would so allow. You're chairing.
Yes, I can second it for you if you don't have anybody. So you're telling us we need more money.
I am saying we need more money, and I would really love for the province and the federal government to help us out with that.
Okay, Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Sherwood.
That was kind of spontaneous. I thought it was just pointing out that Councillor Sherwood had a question, but no, I'd have no problem in at least supporting this. And as you've been very clear, Your Worship, we have to look at other ways of supporting our needs from a municipal perspective. I just wanted to go off on a quick tangent, and this is only because of some most recent activities I've been involved with. We had a housing symposium that was held in the region last Tuesday, and the same thing was being spoken about, where we have to look at alternative ways to support the municipalities, and this is one way of doing so. And I think that your motion is, I'm hoping, will rattle the ears of those that need to know about it. But thank you for bringing this forward.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you. I wanted to let you know, Your Worship, that I support you 1,000% on this. I think it's a fabulous request to our provincial and federal governments. Hopefully, we can start getting a piece of the pie that we deserve, whether it be part of the land transfer tax or the GST. Fingers crossed that we can get some or all, like from one or the other or both. And hopefully they just don't receive this, but that they take this in really good consideration. And I think you're going to find you're going to have lots of support from other municipalities once this gets around.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you, Mayor Post.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh, for assuming the chair for that. Was there any notices of motion at tonight's meeting? No, seeing none. We will move into announcements. Any announcements? Councillor Andrews.
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to just take this moment to congratulate David Nairn, who is our Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville. Saturday evening, myself and other members of council, led by Mayor Post and Councillor Sherwood, who sits on the Theatre Orangeville board, recognized Mr. Nairn for his contributions for over 25 years in our community. And it was really a delight to see him not be able to say too much, which is very rare for Mr. Nairn, but he was really, I think, taken back by the acknowledgement of having the stage upstairs identified as the David Nairn stage on behalf of council. And the plaque that was provided to Mr. Nairn was really just perfect from a design perspective and who he is and what he's done. We also had an announcement today on who the new artistic director is going to be. So Miss Jennifer Stewart is going to be joining the theater as the new artistic director starting in January. She'll be cohabitating in this role as David Nairn will be remaining as part of the team until July of 2025. But again, I want to thank you very much, Mayor Post, for your leadership on that wonderful acknowledgement to Mr. Nairn, because it is so well deserved.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Andrews. I was going to mention about Jennifer Stewart today, so thank you for bringing that up. So I'll put a plug in now for the upcoming production. It's a pantomime, and if you want to spend some time laughing, giggling, and cheering, and singing and dancing, I really encourage you to get tickets to Sleeping Beauty. It'll be running November 28th to December 21st, and I can tell you, if it's anything like the pantomime Cinderella last year, you're in for a fun-filled night.
Any additional announcements for members of council? I will just give a quick shout out then. This weekend we celebrated Christmas in Orangeville, and I wanted to give a shout out to the BIA, to the town staff, to all the volunteers who really brought to life not only a fantastic tree lighting and outdoor market for the first time, really promoting shopping local in our downtown core. And then of course, Santa Claus came to town for a second time with the Santa Claus Parade, which was unbelievably well attended. So it was a great festive weekend, and it took a lot of volunteers and time, and thank you to everybody, and a special thank you to the Lord Dufferin Center for the beautiful tree that we have outside, and the work of not only town staff but also Orangeville Hydro and Otts Tree Service, who helped to make sure that the tree is up and decorated and all of those things. So it looks fantastic. Any other announcements? Okay, so we will move into bylaws then. The recommendation is that all of the bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17 bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to establish consolidated user fees and charges for services provided by the town of Orangeville. A bylaw to amend numerous bylaws to provide for a consolidation of user fees and charges for the town of Orangeville. A bylaw to enact rules and regulations for the operation of a water supply system, a water distribution system, a wastewater collection system, and a wastewater treatment system in the town of Orangeville, and to establish rates. A bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a lease agreement with Artel Inc. for the use of 112 Broadway as a municipal parking lot. And finally, the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its regular and closed council meeting held tonight, November 18th. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood? No. Okay, we will do Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens. Questions? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Can you pull off voting separately 17.3, please? Water rates.
Okay,
Can you
17.3.
pull that off to be voted separately, please?
Yeah, I can. And 17.2, are you going to declare it? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so let's start that again. We will do it. I already got a mover in a second, or do I need to? I'm good. Okay, so we will take care of 17.1, 17.4, and 17.5 first. Okay, all in favor of those ones? Thank you, that's carried. Next, I will have Councillor Stevens excuse himself for 17.2. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that one, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. We'll have Councillor Stevens come back in. Nice and quick. 17.3 will be around water and wastewater. Okay, and I will have a mover and a seconder for that one. Councillor Andrews and Councillor McIntosh. Was there questions or comments on that one? Okay, all in favor? And opposed? Councillor Sherwood opposed? All right, thank you. And now we just need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for joining us this evening.